Friends, welcome and welcome back to Andy's Rec Room. This week, I got some very interesting updates on some gear I've been working with for a while, and also some insights on recent comments and interactions with other YouTubers. The stars of the show today are going to be the Fosi Q6 DAC and the Kicker CompQ 15 subwoofer, of course. They've been in play for a while now, and what I wanted to do was basically a follow-up on both those components. I'd done videos on both of them previously on the build of the subwoofer, the open baffle subwoofer I'm sitting on, and the DAC as well. So what's interesting is the thumbnail would appear to be obvious clickbait, but it's not, and I'll tell you why. It's all application specific. What I was using the Q6 for in this particular setup behind me was a feed for my subwoofer. So I was using Banana software, going into Ekio, splitting out of Banana, doing my crossover stuff and timing delay, sending it off to an amp and sending it off to the subs. And I switched from a very modest $19 DAC to the Q6. Now, I previously listened to the Q6 at length, and it's freaking amazing. It sounds fantastic. And in subwoofer duties, and here's the punchline, it was too good. There's no need for it, because you're not dealing with complex harmonics and overtones and all the nuanced sound that you'd want to have out of a better DAC. And coming back to DAC sound, I'm going to address that a little bit later on, and it's kind of funny, actually. But essentially, there was no major penalty using the cheaper DAC for that application. So now what's going to happen is I'm going to be putting the Q6 into a different duty. It'll probably integrate into my main mixing system for my pro work for a little while, because I want to test it out in that situation. And so far, from what I heard previously in a quick test today, it'll definitely do the job. Not only do the job, but it's got some attributes that's going to help my mixing setup. So how did I arrive at all these conclusions here? And there's there's a bit of baggage coming into this video, and you'll see where I go with this. What you have to do when you're evaluating these type of units is critical listening. And by critical listening, I mean listening to longer sections of music. There's one chap, and I actually really like his channel, but I'm going to address something with him later on as well. And he edits like these short sections, goes, gotcha, you couldn't hear it. Well, I've been editing for decades. I can edit like frickin' stuff that's totally disparate in sound quality, make seamless edits. It'll sound like the sax player or guitarist is moving around in the recording. Your brain is not going to discern the difference in a DAC between those snippets, because your brain's going, oh, something's changed. Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff changing continuously. The best way to do it is long sessions. Sit down, listen to your music thoroughly, and really, really, really pay attention to it. Listen to the depth, the resolution, the transients, all of it. And if you have longer chunks, it'll make a lot more sense. So critical listening is really, really something important. And I'm going to tie into the critical listening element with the chap I had a discourse with. It involved op amps. And he said, yeah, send me a sample. I sent him a sample. And it's like, gotcha, snake oil, blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, if you can't hear the difference, man, you're fucking deaf. And I'm going to say it, you're fucking deaf. You don't belong in this business. It's that kick in the head obvious. But here's the funny part. I actually, just put it into I use multiple DAWs. I stuck it into Cubase, and I just had to look at the waveform. And as all the hip people are saying these days in all the news shows, I got the receipts. I actually had to look at the waveforms and not to say. So the deal is this, man. If you can't hear the difference in those waveforms, quit. Get another line of work, man. It's over. You're done. And I mean, and to be fair, look, if you're listening on a system through YouTube that's not really, really tuned in, you won't hear the difference. But if you're claiming to be a professional in this industry and you can't hear it, man, quit, stop, enough, basta. And I'm going to take it one step further into some other areas a lot of you have been sort of either not sure about or questioning. There's two areas in actual musical instruments, in woodwinds and in guitars. I was a member of one of the woodwind forums for a while, and I just left because the level of pseudoscientists, and they're all retired scientists, except they don't work in music. They don't work in sound, but they're all freaking experts. Now, what happens, this is really interesting in saxophones, is like there's a whole debate whether a saxophone that has lacquer on it will sound different than a saxophone that doesn't have lacquer on it. And the whole argument is the shape, the cone, the bounce, it's all the same, it doesn't matter. But what they seem to forget, and this is where it's going to tie in with tone wood on guitars, is when you have something that has sound going into it, the surrounding body will start vibrating. So in a saxophone, the metal starts to vibrate. Now, that's going to have an effect on the actual waveform forming inside. You got things like comb filtering and all kinds of little anomalies. They're very subtle, but players hear it. Same with the guitar. The argument is 2 fulcrum points, pickup, that's it. Nothing else matters. But again, all the geniuses forget the strings make the body vibrate. Now, what's hooked up to the body? It's frickin' pickups. Now, you're telling me with a straight face that the vibrations getting into a pickup that's picking up strings and it's vibrating as well aren't going to affect the sound? Dude, just pack it up. Just stop. It's enough. And I'm sorry, this video might be a bit controversial. I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of flames, but my policy is simple. You act like an idiot, you're banned, no more, don't want to hear about you. I'm not even going to enter into discourse on that. So the whole thing with this ongoing project I'm doing is looking for differences in gear and optimizing a modestly priced system that sounds great. So right now what you have is you got the Q6 that was hooked up to this amazing kicker that just worked beautifully. But I'm going to put back the cheap DAC on this set, and I'm going to move the Q6 now to higher duties. And what they're going to be doing is basically, I'm going to split my setup between a UAD Arrow for input and the Q6 for output. And I did the test today, and the difference, very much like the Motu compared to the UAD, the UAD's got a bit of a smoother sound to it. It's kind of just a warmer tone. But both the Motu and the Q6, they have different converters, of course. That's the reason why they sound different. Have a sort of more airy, spacious tone to them. And for mixing, that'll help give a bit of clarity for, isolating sounds and tweaking and stuff. But again, we come back to the difference here. The difference between these two things is smack you in the head with a baseball bat. If you can't hear it, I'm telling you, man, just stop. Go back, re-listen, and see what people are telling you. You got, God bless him, Amir is a wonderful scientist. But dude, if you can't hear the difference, man, what are you doing? It's a disservice. Of course the science has to be there. Of course I analyze waveforms myself to look at stuff. If you want to find out more about transients and all these important components, you have to look at the nitty gritty, but also trust these guys. These are the best measuring tools on the planet. If it doesn't work here, it doesn't matter what the numbers say. So guys, keep listening. Keep analyzing. It's going to help you out to enjoy what you possibly already have. Simple things like moving speakers around. If you have critical listening, you'll analyze and go, yeah, all I have to do is move these guys out a bit and boom, all that honkiness is gone. Simple stuff. You all know that. But coming back to the sort of fear of speaking out about these sort of techno giants, it's like, guys, you might be scientists in your realm, but I'm an expert in my realm. I worked in the audio industry for 40 years. I got paid good money to set up systems, figure out why things weren't working, like just slapping a clock on a digital console to get it more airy. This is real audio for real audiences. You got houses of 1,000 people. I wasn't a YouTuber all my career. I was a professional in audio. So what I could try to bring to you guys, and hopefully with some humor in it, is real facts. Not conjecture, not some weird measurement that means nothing, but good old down to earth. Hey, this works. But anyways, the next video will be more mellow. I'll temper it down, but in the meantime, have a great week.